Shalom, shalom, shalom to everyone watching. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel, Darkei Israel, Los Caminos de Israel. We are continuing our studying of To Be a Jew. Those of you who are following these classes on our YouTube channel, please continue to download them, review the book. The page that we're on is on page 289 in the book To Be a Jew. We're going to look at this morning, or in this video, prohibited marriages. There are unions which are considered prohibited according to Torah law. Of course, we Jews follow these laws. All unions, whether they're temporary or permanent, of a single occasion or of any other nature, of a man with a woman in any of the following categories, are classified as incestuous and are sternly prohibited. In addition to the one that I mentioned in the previous video, because of the issue of Toehvah, we do not sanction nor bless marriages that are of the same sex, in other words, homosexuality or lesbianism, because it falls under the category of relationships that are prohibited by the Torah. Now, blood relations, mother, daughter, sister, granddaughter, aunt, sister of one's father or mother. Case of affinity, the wives of blood relations, son's wife, for example, father's wife, uncle's wife, aunt by marriage, brother by wife. The blood relations of one wife are also included in this category. Wife's mother, wife's sister, wife's children by previous marriage is also prohibited category for marriage. The wife of another man who has not been divorced by a valid Jewish get from her husband. This is a big problem in the Jewish community, since we have so many women who have not received a proper get and therefore are unable to get married, and if they marry them, it would be an adulterous marriage. Which is the second relationship in the union of a man with a woman and her daughter or granddaughter, whether both are living or after the death of one. A wife's sister during the wife's lifetime, even if the wife had been divorced from him. After the divorce or after the death of a wife or ex-wife, it is permitted to marry her sister. No problem there, but only after the death of one. All the foregoing unions are forbidden by Torah. Under no circumstance can any of these unions be deemed a marriage, even if contracted under and approved by civil law or blessed by a Jewish spiritual leader. Such relationships have no binding force whatsoever under Jewish religious law, and no get is ever required for their dissolution. Children born from such unions are considered mamzerim, or illegitimate. Do not defile yourselves in any of those ways, for all of those abhorrent things were done by the people who were in the land before you. All who do any of those abhorrent things, such as persons, shall be cut off from their people. This is karet. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 24, verse 27, verse 29. Now there's a whole question as to what it means, karet. Does it mean completely discommunicated from the Jewish people? Does it mean premature unaliving, as it were, from the hands of Shamayim? There's a whole series of things that we won't get into today of what karet, or being cut off, means. You shall keep my charge, nor to engage in any of the abhorrent practices that were carried on before you, lest you defile yourselves through them. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 30. And again, this also refers to a man with another man, or a woman with another woman, or vice versa. These are abhorrent practices that the nations that were removed from the land were punished by. And thus, God tells the Jewish people, do not practice these things. It's abhorrent. And therefore, any marriage, I want you to please listen to it, and it may offend some people because Torah is very clear. It doesn't mince words. When a person is practicing such a lifestyle that is abhorrent, though we human beings can understand, we attempt to cover up or to understand the person that is in such a relationship. Once its status is abhorrent or Toehvah, an abomination, it is a marriage that rabbis technically cannot marry unless that rabbi wants to transgress what God said. And yes, we have a lot of rabbis who do that, and they actually marry same-sex couples. So please, this is all based on religion. It's not attacking any multicolored groups. It's just what the Torah says. A child born out of wedlock, however, repugnant to the Jewish morality, is not classified as illegitimate under Jewish law. Such a child bears no special stigma. The Hebrew term for bastard or mamzer, as used in the Torah, only refers to issues of a forbidden relationship enumerated above. So if you're involved and there's a byproduct of that relationship, that child is considered a mamzer. I remember not too long ago a very prominent family here in the Miami Beach area whose daughter-in-law basically was involved in a relationship that was considered adulterous. She had a child. That child that was born to the daughter of the lady, the Jewish lady, basically everybody knew quietly it was an illegitimate child. It was a mamzer. And thus, there are certain situations in such a case that the Torah rules how to deal with an issue of a mamzer among the Jewish community. So I won't go into that in specifics, but it was kind of embarrassing because everybody knew and everybody didn't want to talk about it because the family was very prominent in the Orthodox Hasidic Jewish community. The marriage of a Jew with a non-Jew has no binding force under Jewish law and is not recognized as a religiously valid, even if performed and blessed by thousands of rabbis. This is called a mixed marriage, a unequally yoked marriage, and thus the Torah does not give permission to marry a Jew with a non-Jew. Even though they may go to secular court and get married before God's eyes, before the laws of Moses and Israel, it's not recognized as a valid marriage until the point where the couple who is not Jewish converts and assumes the Jewish law, Torah, and undergoes the proper halakhic conversion, then goes through a proper Orthodox or remarriage according to the laws of Moses and Israel, then can that marriage be recognized as a kosher marriage and a kosher couple with blessings that come upon them. And this is why the basis for a sanctified relationship in accordance to the law of Moses in Israel is the creation of an atmosphere in which the precepts of the Lord will be fulfilled, and where children will be raised in an atmosphere of religious faith. Judaism does not conceive of an atmosphere of religious faith that is outside of its own faith. Judaism does not conceive of marriage bond purely as a legal device designed to lend approval to the gratification of the physical or emotional desires of a couple. In the foundation of a Jewish marriage, its purpose are absent. The children of such a marriage are, however, not regarded as mamzers. Their status as Jews depends upon whether or not the mother is Jewish. By Torah law, Leviticus 21, verse 6 through 7, a Cohen is prohibited to marry a woman in which of the following categories are prohibited to him: a divorcee, one who has been released through chalitza, a proselyte or convert, one who is known to be promiscuous or have been involved in forbidden sexual relationship, or one whose is herself an offspring of a forbidden marriage entered into by a Cohen with a woman in any of the preceding categories. Now, this in particular applies to a Cohen Gadol, who's forbidden to take a widow as a wife, though it's permitted to an ordinary Cohen. Leviticus 21, verse 14. Now, we see that this is a big problem among many Cohens who tend to be not religious and therefore can lose their Cohenship as a result of getting involved in this area. Although the Torah forbids a Cohen from entering into any of the above marriage, and Halakha prohibits a rabbi from officiating at such marriage, should the Cohen nevertheless contract and consummate the relationship, the marriage as a marriage is valid, this differs from the prohibited relationship where no legal marriage takes hold and where the offsprings are illegitimate. As a matter of fact, the issues of a Cohen marrying even a convert is problematic, but they are told very clearly that they will no longer be able to officiate as a Cohen. And everything is done to make sure that he doesn't go forward with the marriage, because it's losing a Cohen. He will lose his office as a Cohen during the period of time that he is in such a relationship. And such a marriage disqualifies the Cohen from his duties and privilege and affects the status of the children born. They're not considered Cohens. Male children are considered halal, are disqualified from the privilege and duties of a Cohen just because he has a last name Cohen. It doesn't mean that he is necessarily a kosher Cohen and can perform the duties of a Cohen. And thus, the children would be considered halal. And the female children, halalah, and are forbidden to marry a Cohen. Can marry a convert, can marry a Jew, but cannot marry a Cohen. The high priest is called the Cohen Hagadol, who also is forbidden to take a widow as a wife, as we saw in Leviticus chapter 21, verse 14. And although this is permitted to the ordinary Cohen, not to the Cohen Gadol. Now, there are areas in which a Cohen can give up his Cohenship in order to marry one of these categories that we just mentioned that are forbidden to him. A divorcee, one that was released from Halitza, a convert, one who is known to be promiscuous, to have been involved in forbidden sexual relationships, one who herself is an offspring of a forbidden marriage. Upon taking such a relationship, the Cohen loses his status and is himself halal, and to be able to perform the rites of a Cohen. And here we end with these prohibitive marriage. So imagine a Cohen and a Cohen marrying each other. Obviously, this is a problem. There was one time at a synagogue that I attended in California, I won't say the city because then everybody will know, who happened to be married, over 7 children, and basically came out of the closet. Obviously, he was leading the community in prayer, and the day that he came out of the closet, the majority of the minyan walked out. Why? Because the person who's leading the prayer is representing the congregation before God. The fact that he came out of the closet in the practice of what is considered by the Torah Toehvah automatically would have brought something not good to that community. And thus, no rabbi would be able to marry that person who happened to be a Cohen with another Cohen because they were in a loving relationship. God says very clearly it's Toehvah, and thus no true-hearted Jewish rabbi would ever marry these two individuals. Obviously, he would have to go to a non-Orthodox, non-Hasidic rabbi to ask them to marry them, because they will bend everything in order to make people happy, but not necessarily make God happy. I hope you understand the importance of this aspect of marriage, kosher marriage, in a kosher way, and thus respect the values of Torah and Torah law. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel, and we end this chapter with marriage. Our next chapter will deal with divorce, a very hard area, something that saddens the very heart of God, and that even the altar of God weeps over a divorce. But we're going to take a look at it. It is something that is permitted within Judaism. It's not prohibited. So stay tuned for our next chapter, chapter 20, divorce.